Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu and I'm back with another Digimon deck profile video. So today I'm going to be taking a look at BT-06, and BT-06 offers us a lot of new and powerful cards to not only build new and exciting decks with, but to also upgrade current and existing decks. And in today's deck that I'm going to be talking about, it is going to be an updated version of Lordknightmon. So even though Lordknightmon doesn't directly get any new support in the set, there are just a lot of new possibilities that Lordknightmon could be playing with, and those possibilities, while for the most part are going to be shelved, they're still just that, possibilities on different ways that you could build the deck, all depending on the types of tech and tools you want to use to best support the deck the way you feel like you want to. But again, for the most part, Lordknightmon is going to be remaining relatively unchanged compared to a lot of the other decks, just because it doesn't need any of those new tools in order to be super powerful, because it already is super powerful. And just as a quick reminder, I am going to be hosting a Win a Playmat event on October 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so feel free to hop into my Discord and register for the event through Limitless Games and play on my Discord channel. Links to those will be in the description below. So without further ado, onto the deck profile. I'm going to be running one copy of Greymon. So Greymon is the 5th Digitama of the deck. It could really be anything you want it to be. I like using Greymon just because it's adding some additional removal of when attacking once per turn. If we have 3 or fewer cards in our security, then we get to minus 1000 DP onto the opponent's Digimon for the turn, and that's just, well, pretty good considering DP reduction does stack, so you could use this in combination with a lot of your other cards to end up deleting the opponent's Digimon. But for the main Digitama, I'm going to be running up 4 copies of Pikmon. So Pikmon is doing basically the exact same thing as at Greymon, except it's not limited to once per turn, and it's when we have 3 or more Digimon in play is when we get to minus 1000 DP to the opponent's Digimon. So the conditions are a little bit different, but the fact that it's doing the same thing of just trying to add more DP reduction to end up deleting the opponent's Digimon is the main reason why we want to run it. Next, on to the rookies, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Salamon. So this is the BT-02 version of Salamon, and this Salamon is really good because it's acting as the recovery for the deck. So its recovery ability comes from its on-delete ability, where if we have 3 or fewer cards in our security, then we get to recover 1, and because we're yellow, we're going to be dealing damage to ourselves, and we could potentially have the opponent aggress into us, thus being able to utilize this ability to just have us be able to recover, ensuring that we're going to stay in the game as long as we possibly can. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Bushi-Agumon. So Bushi-Agumon is a really powerful card because it has the Rush ability. So the Rush ability allows it to attack the turn it comes into play, and even though it does have a very high play cost, this is Lordknightmon we're talking about, we're just going to be playing it for free, and if we're not playing it for free, then we're going to evo it on top of our eggs, and we actually do have ways to get to 5 memory in case we actually do need to hard play it in order to use it to try to push up for damage or push for the game. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Mons. So Mons is another really insane card for the deck to run because it is a level 3 rookie that has a really powerful removal ability attached to him. So his on-play ability is he reduces one of the opponent's Digimon by 1000 for each Digimon we have in play. This does include himself, so at worst it's going to be on play minus 1000, and at best it could be on play minus 3 to potentially 5 or 6000, which for a level 3 body that we're just going to be playing for free most of the time off of our Lordknightmon is just that strong because it's just a really good removal effect, especially paired up with any of our other DP reductions to just stack and add to this. We could delete a wide variety of different targets. And then the last rookie of the deck is going to be 4 copies of Pulsemon. Pulsemon is still just an absolutely powerhouse of a card to be playing around with because of how flexible and how strong its on-play ability is. So its on-play ability lets us draw 1 card if we have 3 or more security, gain a memory if we have 3 or less security, and then we get both abilities if we are at exactly 3 memory. So that just means this card could be very efficient to play, or it could help us dig and draw through our deck, or it could do both, and that just is, well, really good, because drawing and gaining memory are two things the deck already wants to be doing, and Pulsemon does both of them. Next, on to the champions, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Taruimon. So Taruimon is just that tempo-efficient champion. We only care about the fact that he evos for 1, so that way we could try to climb our levels as quickly and efficiently as we possibly can. The 6000 DP is a little nice to be playing around with, just because it helps him be a sticky and aggressive body in case we need to use him for that, but most of the time we're just going to be using him to digivolve up into our higher levels with. Next, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Pikmon. So Pikmon is doing a very similar job to Taruimon. We really only care about the fact that he evos for 1, but the big trade-off between him and Taruimon is the fact that he is a blocker as well, so he could potentially act as some defense, but he does have only 5000 DP versus Taruimon's 6000 DP, meaning he's going to be more susceptible to various forms of removal. But regardless, Pikmon being a blocker that evos for 1 is still just a very strong card to be playing around with. And then I'm going to be running 4 copies of Unimon. So Unimon is going to be the main blocker of the deck, just because it has 6000 DP versus Pikmon's 5000 DP. So we are starting to notice that the DP difference actually does matter, and Unimon is going to be harder to remove it than Pikmon. So Unimon, as a result, is going to be the primary card we just want to sit on our field, and Pikmon is the blocker that we don't feel bad about evoing on top of, just because it evos for 1, similar to Taruimon, because we also have Unimon as the main blocker of the deck. Next, on to the ultimates, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Angelomon. So this is the BT-03 Angelomon, and this card, well, is still just that good to be playing around with that we just want to use her. So she has 2 abilities. Her when digivolving ability is something we really don't care about. It's going to rarely happen, but when it does happen, it's kind of nice, where we get to put security attack -2 on one of the opponent's Digimon. So it just stops them from attacking into our security, trying to deal us security damage, so it could help prevent OTK type strategies, but we're really only going to be using the card for her inheritable ability, which is a when attacking ability not limited to once per turn, where if we have 3 or fewer cards in our security, then we get to play 1 yellow level 3 Digimon from our hand for free. And that's just really powerful because it's just free value, and free value is just that good, and we just have a lot of powerful abilities to be triggering with our rookies. So we could trigger any of our on-play abilities off of our rookies, and we could play Bushi Agumon off of this ability in order to make Bushi Agumon help us swing and push pressure and aggression that way. So Angelomon is still just a very good card to be running in the deck as a result. Next, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Greymon. So Greymon, like Angelomon, is still just that good of a card to be running, just because its 2 abilities are really strong. The inheritable ability we don't care about as much. It's still nice to have, just because during your turn, if we have 3 or fewer cards in our security, it'll gain plus 1000 DP. But for the most part, Lordknightmon's already going to be doing this, so it's not really that big of a deal. It's more of a bigger deal on our supporting cards than our main card. But regardless, what we're really trying to use this card for is his main ability of Digiburst 2, where we get to get rid of 2 cards from his inheritable source to give one of the opponent's Digimon minus 4000 DP. So that way we could start our turn off with them already having a large amount of their DP reduced. So that way it's easier to pair it up with some other reduction in order to delete the opponent's Digimon. So that's the only real reason why we're playing the card, is just for that Digiburst ability. And then the last ultimate of the deck is going to be 4 copies of Knightmon. So Knightmon is just a very powerful card to be playing with because of its synergy with Lordknightmon, where we're going to use Lordknightmon to essentially play Knightmon for free, and having a free level 5 that also has a nice on-play ability to reduce one of the opponent's Digimon's DP by 4000 is just that good. So we could use this in combination with a lot of other cards in order to make our turns and make our plays as powerful as we possibly can. But at worst, if we do just need to use it to digivolve into a Lordknightmon or any of our other cards, then that's just fine to do in raising. But again, we have to play as much Knightmon as we possibly can to try to get as much value off of our Lordknightmon as we possibly can. Next, on to the Megas, I'm going to be running 1 copy of Slash Angemon. So Slash Angemon is still just a very powerful card because his when digivolving ability of removing 8000 DP is just a lot of DP to be removing all at once. So at worst, alone, without any synergy or support, he could pick off a lot of level 5s in the game, and then with some synergy and support coming from Greymon and Knightmon, we could use them to reduce the Digimon's DP by 4,000, and then Slash could reduce it by another 8,000, potentially deleting up to 12,000 if not more, based on some of the other cards that we could have used or played in the turn. So this just helps us delete a wide variety of different targets, and that's just really, really good. Next, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Greymon. So Greymon is still just really good because he just has lots of abilities all attached to his one ability. So his one ability is a when attacking ability once per turn. We get to add the top card of our security stack to our hand, essentially drawing us a card. Unsuspend this Digimon, which allows us to multi-attack with this card. So we could trigger multiple of our on-attack abilities again and again. And on top of that, he also will reduce one of the opponent's Digimon's DP by 6,000, acting as some removal as well. So all of those elements combined just make this card very, very strong to be playing with overall. And then the last level 6 of the deck is going to be 4 copies of Lordknightmon. Well, it's not a Lordknightmon deck without Lordknightmon, and Lordknightmon is still just that good of a card just because free value is free value, and this card becomes harder to remove the more Digimon we have in play. So what this card is doing is it has a when attacking ability where we get to play 1 yellow level 3 Digimon from our hand for free, or 1 Digimon with a warrior as its attribute from our hand for free as well. So the fact that we could spawn level 5 bodies off of this ability and then get its on play effect is really powerful, and we just have a slew of really strong level 3 Digimon that we could be playing around with, and almost all of our ultimates do combo with Lordknightmon, because if we use Angelomon's ability, we could potentially spawn 2 bodies off of 1 swing, and that could be a lot of additional pressure onto the opponent, on top of feeding into Lordknightmon's second ability, where during all turns, which is insane, for each of your other Digimon in play, this Digimon gets plus 1,000 DP, meaning that Lordknightmon can easily hit 12, 13, 14, or even 15 without even trying, on top of any buffs or debuffs that we could also apply to it. So Lordknightmon is just the complete package in terms of a powerhouse card next to Greymon, so it's just going to be the main card that we use the deck, and the reason why the deck is built the way it is. And then the last mega of the deck is going to be the only level 7 of the deck, and that's going to be 2 copies of Chaosmon Volderarm. So this deck really doesn't need level 7s. You don't have to run Chaosmon if you don't want to. Chaosmon is just nice to use off of our other megas just because, well, it's a level 7, it's doing some very powerful things, and it's still a decent card to be using when our other cards start becoming less and less worthwhile. So the worst one to digivolve this on top of is going to be a Lordknightmon. It does feel a little bit bad to do that, but if you do have to do that just to try to deal with the situation, then that's totally acceptable, but it is meant to be digivolved on top of the other megas. So what this card is doing is it has a very powerful removal when digivolving ability of activating it twice to reduce one of the opponent's Digimon's DP by 7,000. So you could split it up or combine it, but regardless, minusing a total of 14,000 off of the field is just that good, and its on-delete ability is pretty annoying of being able to gain 3 memory, which most of the time you're going to be triggering this on the opponent's turn, so it's like you're taking away 3 memory, and that could be pretty good because it could end the opponent's turn or make their turn even more awkward than it was before. Next, onto the options, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Blinding Ray. So Blinding Ray is still just a good card just because it gains us lots of memory really, really quickly. So for the low cost of 0, we get to trash one card from the top of our security, and then we get to gain 2 memory. Those 2 abilities are independent, so if you don't have any security at all, you still will get the 2 memory, which makes Blinding Ray insane. The only unfortunate thing about Blinding Ray is the fact that it doesn't have security abilities, but the fact that we do just have a card to just instantly gain us lots of memory means that we could use this to make very powerful plays out of nowhere. Next, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Wyvern's Breath as the only other option of the deck. So Wyvern's Breath is basically Yellow's Gaia Force, where we get to have one of the opponent's Digimon get minus 15,000 DP. So this is just going to be good enough to delete almost at any level 6 and even some level 7s in the game. And, well, that's just some really powerful level of removal all coming from one option. and then it has the nice security ability of activating its main, so when it's checked in the security, they're still going to have a Digimon basically get deleted through DP reduction, making this card just that good. Next, onto the Tamers, I'm going to be running 2 copies of TK. So this is the BT-01 TK, and this TK is still really good just because he is going to be acting as the deck's dedicated memory fixing tamer. So if our memory is ever less than 3, he'll just hard set it to 3, and we need it to be at 3 in order to make a lot of our plays possible, so that way we could evolve into any of our megas and not pass the turn, which is really, really important. And then on top of that, he also has a nice on-play ability where we get to look at all of our security, and then we get to reveal 1 card among them and add it into our hand, and if that card is yellow, we get to recover 1, acting as some solid consistency using our security as basically a secondary hand to pull from, so that way we could try to be as consistent as we possibly can. And then the last tamer of the deck is going to be 2 copies of TK Inkari. So TK Inkari is yellow's duo tamer, and this tamer is a really decent tamer because it also helps us try to fix our memory, but the condition is a little bit different where it triggers at the start of our turn. If we have less security than our opponent, then we get to gain 2 memory. So because we are yellow, we have ways of dealing ourselves security damage, so that way we could easily turn this ability online to gain 2 additional memory, and if we pair this up with our memory fixing tamer, then we could potentially start the turn with 5 memory, and that just opens the doors for even more crazy possibilities. And then on top of that, it has a nice secondary ability that triggers during your turn when one of your yellow Digimon attacks. You could suspend this tamer to just give one of the opponent's Digimon minus 1000 DP for the turn. So even at worst, if you can't use its first ability to gain some memory, its second ability to act as some additional power to try to remove and deal with the opponent's Digimon through DP reduction is just that good. But outside of the fact that Lordknightmon really hasn't changed on a fundamental base level, a lot of what you could do with it has kind of changed, and there's just a ton of different things that you could do with the deck, all depending on what you want to gain out of the deck and the different types of cards that you want to be using. So keep in mind that version of Lordknightmon is just more of a base generic version of Lordknightmon. It's just showing what Lordknightmon is going to be doing on a fundamental level in BT-06, and it's up to you to decide what kind of tech and tools you want to incorporate to spice up the deck to make it your own. So there's just a lot of different options that you could be using. So if you want to use an alternate Digitama, then Upamon is just that good because it helps you draw cards for the same conditions as Koromon. Then you have Lotmon as another on-play ability to help you reduce your own security and draw your cards. And at worst, you get that information and knowledge. Then you have Lucimon to act as some good healing. You're never going to hard play it for its actual play cost. You're going to always play it for free off of your Digimon's ability to play level 3s for free, and its recover and stats just make it very, very strong. Then you have Cutemon to think about just to try to help against the opponent if they're trying to reduce their Digimon's Digivolution cost. So this is a good counter card to stop some of those strategies. Then you have Kotemon to act as another consistency tool for the deck to try to dig out your yellow warriors or your holy warriors. So we do have more holy warriors in the deck that you could use as your supporting mega. So this could be an even more powerful card now than it was in BT-05, just because we have more potential targets to play. Then you also have Tapermon, so if you are going with either Mastimon or War Greymon approach, then Tapermon is actually a really good inheritable ability to use to help you draw cards when you remove cards from your security stack. And Pulsemon is just another really decent card to be playing around with from BT-06 because he could give your Digimon jamming for being at 3 security. Then we have Patamon, the promo Patamon, to help us recover. And we also have Kudomon, the new promo Kudomon, to also help us recover for playing Kentarosmon, and he makes Kentarosmon more playable because his inheritable ability combos with Kentarosmon's on-delete ability by giving him another on-delete ability of reducing one of the opponent's Digimon's DP by 1000. And then we also do have Patamon from the starter deck to just gain us a memory when we delete one of our opponent's Digimon through DP reduction, which is what you're going to be doing a lot of the time in the deck. Then we have Gladiemon to possibly think about, acting like basically a TK on legs, looking for our warriors or holy warriors, which we do have more holy warriors to be playing around with, so this card could get even better for just being another consistency tool, on top of the fact that it is a warrior to be played for free off of Lordknightmon. Then we do have Wizardmon as another really good inheritable source to be using if you are looking to use War Greymon or Mastymon, just because for the same type of trigger as Tapirmon, reducing our own security, we get to gain 1 memory. Then we have the red Rise Greymon to think about, just because we do have other Tamers we could play, and we could use the Digiburst ability to just be able to play our Tamers that much more efficiently, on top of the fact that he still has a nice removal ability as an inheritable ability, where if we have a Tamer in play when our Digimon's swinging, then we get a minus 2000 DP for the turn, which could be pretty good because it's also not limited to once per turn. Then we do have Mastymon to think about playing, just because Mastymon was good before in BT5, so Mastymon is still probably going to be good now in BT6, just because trashing the opponent's security is really good. Yes, we are trashing our own security, but we don't care about that as much. And then on top of that, being able to res a level 4 body and use its on-play ability is just that good, because it can help line up lots of powerful plays. Then you could use Magnadramon as just another Lordknightmon to try to swing and play our level 3 Digimon for free. So that was really good all the way back in BT4, it's still good in BT5, and it could still be good in BT6, all depending on the types of cards you want to use to support it with. And then you also have the added benefit of having it have an on-play ability to help you recover too when you're low on your security. Then as far as the other Holy Warriors / Royal Knights that you could be working with in the deck, like I said before, you do have Kentarosmon. Kentarosmon's when Digivolving ability could help stall out the game, so that way you could try to figure out ways to push and aggress onto the opponent, just because they can't aggress onto you, because their Digimon will have a security attack -2, up to 5 of them. And his on-delete ability could help it de-incentivize the opponent from wanting to delete him, just because he could possibly delete one of the opponent's high-level Digimon as a result. And paired up with Kudamon, it could help delete even larger Digimon, so he becomes even more threatening. And you even have Dynasmon to help the deck flow and function, just because his when Digivolving ability is acting as some solid consistency. So you get to look at the top 6 cards of your deck and put 2 level 6 or lower Digimon among them into your hand. So for all intents and purposes, this is basically draw 2. It is sending the cards to the trash, which is a little bit unfortunate, but like you get to use Mastymon and Lucimon in combination with that, so it's not like throwing cards in your trash is that bad, all depending on your build. And then he has this nice, really powerful all turns ability. Once per turn, when a security card is removed from your stack, if you have 3 or fewer cards in your security, then you get to recover 1. So always being able to recover 1 once per turn essentially is just that good, because it allows you to use your security more as a resource, knowing that you're going to be getting some of it back. And then as far as some other really powerful option cards in the deck, you could run Spiral Masquerade, because it plays similar like Starmons, where the more Digimon you have in play, the stronger the removal ability of this card gets. And then you also have Reinforced Memory Boost to try to help feed your security with the exact card that you want out of the top 2. And then the Delay ability gains you 3 memory instead of 2. So it is a really decent card to not only act as a good recovery tool, but to help gain some memory in a pinch as well. And then you also have Yellow Memory Boost to just help with the overall consistency of the deck by looking at the top 4 for a yellow Digimon, and then the rest go to the bottom. And then its Delay ability gains you 2 memory, so again, it's just another really good card to be using. But for the most part, Lordknightmon does remain relatively unchanged, and it really just depends on the spice and variance in your build that you want to be playing around with. That'll come with a lot of those changes. So you could build like a 3 Royal Knights type strategy, use Kodamon and Gladymon to help with the overall consistency on finding your Royal Knights, and then play Kentarosmon, Kudamon, and Dynasmon to really have a Royal Knight-centric build. Or you could double down on War Greymon and Mastymon and try to utilize those types of abilities to remove your own security for some additional benefits. You could run this control variant where you're just trying to control the field as best as you possibly can through various DP reduction abilities. Like, there's just a lot that you could do with Lordknightmon that just showing off this deck is kind of doing it a disservice, and that's why I mentioned a whole bunch of other cards, because all of those cards open up new possibilities on how you want to be building the deck. but as far as Lordknightmon in the grand scheme of things, it's really not changing. So that's all I really have for this video. As always, feel free to tell me your thoughts down in the comments below, and down in the description below are a couple of different ways you could support me and the channel. So I do have a TCG Player affiliate link, so when you use that link to buy cards off of TCG Player, then some of that money will go to supporting me and the channel. I also do make and sell playmats over on Overcard Gamers on Facebook, so when you buy a playmat with my design, then some of that money will also go to help supporting me and the channel. And on top of all of that, I do have a Twitch account over on twitch.tv/Zenitsu, so giving me a follow and a subscription also helps support me there, and I do play Digimon on top of various other games on that platform as well. So thank you everyone for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next video.